Looking down at Texas Motor Speedway, site of the Firestone 600 for the Verizon IndyCar Series. Speeds at well over 200 miles an hour all night long, and it is going to be one exciting event. Look at the crowd on hand for the race this evening. The teams, the drivers lined up down on pit road, getting ready to go. It is hot, and it's going to heat up even more here in just a moment. And now we'll head down to trackside for the words that will get us started this evening for the Firestone 600.
No Limits Texas, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. At this time, please direct your attention to Big Hoss TV.
Hey everybody, James Hinchcliffe here. Welcome to the Firestone 600 and the 27th running of IndyCars here at Texas Motor Speedway. Now normally, I'd be down on the grid, strapped in, getting ready to go with you guys, but unfortunately I'm at home, recovering, and I just want to say, as I sit here in Indianapolis, how much I appreciate all the love and support that I have felt from friends, family, fans, and colleagues. It has truly been overwhelming. Like anybody, I have good days and bad days, and on those bad days, the love and support that we've received really helps get me through, and I really appreciate it. As much as I wish as I was down there with you guys right now, I'm not, so you gotta go put on a good show for me because I don't get quite as much action as I used to. So have a fun, fast, and most importantly, safe race. Without further ado, drivers, start your engines.
That is absolutely awesome, and what a surprise for everybody here, drivers included, to see James Hinchcliffe.
Well, we're going to get a word with Ryan Briscoe here, see what he's got to say. He's filling in for James. Hey, Ryan, can you hear me down there? It's Paul Tracy up in the booth.
Yep, I got you.
Well, you're the guy who's been tapped to fill in for James. You've been all over the world the last couple weeks here. You've been to Indy, you've been to Le Mans, you're back to Texas, you're leaving for Le Mans. You got any words for James and how you're going to do tonight?
Pretty cool to see him on the big screen, and good to hear his voice. Not sure we can do much in the action department, but I'll be certainly trying to take this number 5 car to the front tonight. Do him proud. Sure it's not going to be long till he's back in this car, so just wish him well, and you know, it's great to be a part of the team here.
All right, good luck, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Well, James Hinchcliffe certainly pulling for Ryan Briscoe tonight, and we would all love to pray for him. Make sure that James Hinchcliffe gets a speedy recovery. But one guy you can't count out is Hinchcliffe's former teammate, Marco Andretti. No guy's been more consistent on the series this year than Marco Andretti. In fact, only one driver has completed every lap this season, and it's the man who pilots that 27 car. And in fact, he has a knack for these big ovals as well. Remember this race last year? Marco started 19th. He was running 3rd within 10 laps. Eventually, he had an engine failure. He told me moments ago, I've been waiting a year for this evening. Our car is outstanding. Watch out for that yellow number 27 car this evening, Brian.
Honda powered, and you too can join the IndyCar fray in a Honda powered IndyCar. That one right there, the 2-seater. Don't miss a chance to get in on Honda's fastest seat in sports sweepstakes by entering shophonda.com. Tonight's lucky winner, Rich Morris from Manaway, Ohio. Remember, log on to shophonda.com. Rich, can you hear me? Brian Till in the booth.
I got you loud and clear.
Little better than a Saturday evening in Ohio right now?
Oh, this is amazing. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Are they going to be able to get you out of the car when the green flag drops, or are you guys going to stay out on the track and do a little battle?
Oh, I'm all about giving it a go. Let's stay out here.
Have fun, Rich. Have fun.
Thank you. I am.
Remember, shophonda.com will get you a ride as well. Take a look at the Mother's Polished starting grid. Will Power on the pole, 3rd consecutive year here at Texas Motor Speedway.
And a couple of guys in Hondas that could be a threat as well. Really interesting to see how things play out with the 26 and the 15, Munoz and Rahal.
That's the top 3 rows. You'll look a little bit further back in the pack. There's stories to be told. Scott Dixon has won here before.
And he can win again tonight. Tony Kanaan is a phenomenal racer on the high banks. As we see the next group of guys, Ed Carpenter, look for him. He had struggled in practice, but he's always fast in the race.
Sebastian Bourdais always seems to have problems here at Texas Motor Speedway as well. Ryan Briscoe in the 5. We talked about that, and look at former champion and Indy 500 winner Ryan Hunter-Reay back in 11th. Have some great onboards for you. Ryan Briscoe right there in the Lucas Oil onboard. A little bit further up the grid will be Charlie Kimball in the Levemere onboard. The number 83 Kimball having a great season so far, really improving with his driving. Tony Kanaan was spectacular in practice. Didn't get the lap that he wanted in qualifying in the NTT data IndyCar, but look for him to move forward. And then Scott Dixon, new colors, Energizer colors in the Verizon onboard, the black and green, but the number 9, very familiar. Graham Rahal in the Steak and Shake onboard. You can ride with number 15 all night long and maybe get a little bit hungry as well. I certainly know that Graham is hungry for a good result here. And then Juan Pablo Montoya, remember, the Verizon onboard, you can run all night long with Juan Pablo Montoya getting ready for the green. It is about to get wild in Texas. 2x2 coming through the high banks, 24 degrees of banking as they roll through into the tri-oval to look for the green. And the flag has been waved off. The yellow flag is out. Safety vehicle heading back out onto the racetrack. So no start right now, and that gets everybody's adrenaline up, and then no start. What do you do as a driver?
Man, you've got adrenaline just pumping through you. These guys are full rich on the fuel, ready to go. Not quite sure. It looked perfectly aligned, PT.
I think the back half was not at the back of the pack yet. That pace lap went by pretty quick. It was like all of a sudden we were going green. So they'll let them settle down here a second. Everybody's packed up here 2x2 at a consistent pace, and man, the hair on my neck is standing up.
Remember, Adrenaline on Demand. Download the IndyCar 15 mobile app to get amazing live streams from in-car cameras and more, only from Verizon. And you can ride tonight with Juan Pablo Montoya, your championship leader. They are much better packed up. Back of the field, a little bit ragged still, but looking much better as the front row heads back down. Will Power alongside Juan Pablo Montoya. That's the championship 1 and 2, and the green flag waves at Texas Motor Speed. Castroneves in the blue and white 3.
And it was pretty neat to see Will Power leave his teammate Simon Pagenaud. A little bit of clean air down low. He could have done the chop there in 2, but he kept it clean. Let's see what happens here. Pagenaud to the front.
I'll tell you what, Kanan's hungry. He's looking high, he's looking low. Pagenaud underneath Will Power. Castroneves underneath Kanan. Kanan coming on the high side.
Pagenaud running trimmed out. He ran most of the practice session. In fact, all of the practice session last night, trimmed out aerodynamically wise, and was one of the most consistent drivers out there. So that car working very well. Tony Kanaan now taking the fight to Castroneves. Take a look at the Firestone telemetry for Tony Kanaan. 6 gear, 219 miles an hour.
Green all the way wide open. We'll see how long these guys can keep that trend. I think the guys with the downforce want to be able to stay wide open. I don't think Townsend running a light downforce. I think as we get into more laps, you're going to see those guys have to check the throttle back.
Yeah, it hasn't hurt Kanan so far, but we're in lap 10 right now of a stint. We think a stint is about 50 laps. You get into the high 30s, late 40s on the tires, you're going to be hanging on.
And as these two guys run side by side and the two leaders in front run single file, that's allowing them to get away a little bit. So you want to get back in line here and try to catch up to Pagenaud, who's kind of pulling away now from Power.
Pagenaud so consistent, as I said yesterday, and you see Castroneves say,
man, you got a fast car.
Yeah, he's basically saying, hey, get in line, let's get in line and chase these guys down, is basically the hand signal to Kanan. Like running side by side is a waste of time.
Well, the other thing that Will Power's able to do right now is maybe lift just a little bit on the straightaways and save a little bit of fuel. We think you're actually going to pit on tires rather than fuel tonight, but if you don't have to fill the tank for as long, you can be quicker on pit lane.
I think Castroneves wants to lead Kanan, but Kanan wants to lead Castroneves. So they're still arguing for this position, and they're running close together in the corner.
And as they do that, the two leaders pull away. And I also noticed 2 very different lines being driven by Simon Pagenaud and Will Power, but you can't run a different line for these two guys. They're locked axle to axle.
Here's one thing Tony Kanaan knows. If he can continue to hold Castroneves down, it's going to wear his tires more aggressively, and he will have to lift, Marty.
Well, Townsend, this is playing out exactly like both Simon Pagenaud and Will Power wanted. They both told me that before the race, they wanted to get as far away as they could. Remember, they have that no downforce. They're trying to pull away from that pack because later on, with that little downforce, that's where you pay the penalty. Will Power told me about lap 15. That's where he expects the transition point as we watch this battle between Elio and Tony Kanaan continue to go on. But at lap 15, that's where Power expects the tires to really start falling off.
We will keep our eyes on the battles during the break, and this is a spectacular one. Great stuff from Texas Motor Speedway. We knew it would be. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by Firestone. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone. We'll be back to more from Texas Motor Speedway. What's the speed limit at Texas Motor Speedway? Well, there are no limits because it's in No Limits, Texas, and it was established in 1997, just like the Motor Speedway. And remember, you can watch tonight's IndyCar race online at NBCSports.com and on mobile and tablets with NBC Sports Live Extra. Looking down on the racetrack, it was hot today, well into the 90s. Simon Pagenaud leads right now. Qualified on the front row and had the fastest lap in qualifying, but is a 2-lap average. He had to settle for second. Will Power, our championship leader, well, he started on pole, but has dropped back to second a little bit. And I see one of the ABC entries from AJ Foyt Racing heading to pit road.
We could be seeing some of that tonight early on as guys really struggle with the handling. They'll be coming to pit road early for tires as we watch those two Penske's continue to be so strong at the front. Going to be really interesting, Paul, as Kevin, we're down on pit lane, yeah?
And Jack Hawksworth dropped to the back. He started 17th, and after a few laps, he fell to the back, and they cranked big time on that wing, a couple of turns on that wing. So Hawksworth comes in early, hoping to find a better handling car, but he falls a lap down.
There's so many unknowns right now, Townsend, with all these new winglets on the back of the car, and they probably just missed the aero balance, and they cranked in a bunch of front wing. They put a bunch of rear downforce in, so now it's probably pushing like crazy, wore out the front tires. Got to come in and make a change.
Perhaps the biggest unknown, I think, Paul, is what happens when Pagenaud catches the tail end of the field. Once he gets in turbulent air on that ultra-low downforce, that'll be really interesting.
Well, the good thing is when they come around to catch, it seems like everybody is spread out at a pretty good distance. So there's not a big pack of guys, and Ryan Briscoe, his onboard, filling in for James Hinchcliffe. He went high downforce setup, and he's our biggest mover of the race so far.
He's all the way up to 12th from a 19th place starting position. So Briscoe just has to get his feet back underneath him and get used to being back in an Indy car. Simon Pagenaud absolutely flying out in front, 2 seconds in hand over Will Power, and lap traffic is going to begin to become an issue here. And now Pagenaud is going to find whether he's got a good aero balance in traffic here shortly.
Well, and Pagenaud's going to find a very hard-fought battle for the guys that are just coming up to get lapped, because that's Stefano Coletti and Ryan Hunter-Reay, and they're going to be desperate to stay on the lead lap, hoping a yellow comes out.
Well, they've got a little while until they catch some major traffic. Coletti is off the back here. They put a really high downforce setup. It's his first time here at Texas, so he's just trying to survive. And look at Ryan Hunter-Reay. They're right at the back, so he's struggling from practice. He had a good practice last night and still struggling tonight.
And Pagenaud is going to start to feel the dirty air even that far back, 10 car lengths back. He's going to get turbulent air. He's going to have to start adjusting his line if he's going to want to keep clean air.
Simon Pagenaud, a great car underneath him all weekend long here. He had a good car at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and now he's already up on Coletti. Next in his sights is going to be Ryan Hunter-Reay.
The 22 was so strong, Pagenaud, at Indianapolis, but late in the race, had a little contact there, lost some of his front wing, and fell deep into the field.
And now it's about to get busy. You can begin to see Ryan Hunter-Reay is next, and now CANAL has gotten past Will Power, and Power up high. Looks like the handling going away big time.
He's really dropping like a stone now. His handling has gone away. And look at Helio coming down the inside. And when it goes away on you, it goes away in a hurry.
Well, I think Power got his first temperatures to go. Brian at Castroneves just got his first taste of turbulent air, got high.
And
that's scary.
It takes your breath away
when that happens. When you get that wake, that wash off of another car, it's so much more dramatic here at Texas than it is at Indy. Indy, you run very close to other cars, and here, when you get that washout, the front end just takes off on you.
You don't have to have driven an Indy car or a car on an oval to understand what that wake is like. If you've ever been in a boat, you understand the wake. You see it behind there, and it does the same thing. It spills the air out to the side, and if you get that dirty air over the wings, you don't get the downforce that you had before, and you're going to lose grip. On board right now with Graham Rahal.
It's like Graham Rahal.
That was a desperate coming in.
Yeah, he looks like he's not handled, but guys are coming for tires now.
Kevin?
A little bit early for Ed Carpenter. Before the race said he was really debating on what the downforce level will be. He said we decided to go ahead and go max downforce. They still put a little more front wing in. Carpenter back out after an early pit stop.
And I'm really surprised as Graham Rahal hits pit road how different Ed Carpenter is year over year.
Graham Rahal coming down pit road. He said the car wasn't that bad in the middle of the run, but it fell off a lot at the end of the run. They're going to make a wing adjustment. They also make an air pressure adjustment. He was one of the few cars that was a little bit too loose, or actually a little bit too tight. They put a full turn of wing in the car.
So down and away and back on track, and he'll have to get back up to speed. You lose that lap right now by pitting under green.
Way short of 50 lap full stint. 30 to 34 laps guys are coming, and Pagenaud still out front comfortable, now in some heavy traffic.
And now is when you're going to find if you have that balance. But I was so impressed with Simon Pagenaud last night. The car was consistent. He ran long laps, and it seems to be consistent for him yet again. Simon Pagenaud looking for victory lane, but he has a long, long way to go from here at Texas Motor Speedway. Strategy already playing out here at the Firestone 600. A lot of cars coming to pit road in the very near past. And about half of the field has been in, and now Carlos Munoz is in. Kelly?
He's been suffering from a little bit of understeer. You saw just that little bit of turn from the front wing to help Carlos Munoz, who was a winner a week ago, with his understeer. He's off and away.
Saw Ryan Hunter-Reay, Joseph Newgarden, Takuma Sato, Ed Carpenter, Ray Hall, Coletti. A lot of drivers have pitted, but the guy that is impressing me the most is Simon Pagenaud. The car is just hooked up. You ride on board with Juan Pablo Montoya in fourth.
And you see a very racy Ryan Hunter-Reay and also Graham Rahal. They have already done a pit stop. They're on fresher tires, but they're 2 laps down. They're desperate, Paul, to at least unlap themselves once so they have a chance in this race.
This shows the difference between new tires and old tires.
Absolutely.
We see Graham pass by Pagenaud, who's been comfortably in the lead, pulling away from everybody. And look at that, he just gapped him in the corner, Townsend.
Tell you who is really beginning to close, though, is CANAL, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. Pagenaud had a considerable lead earlier, and it's now down to less than a second as Tony CANAL flying, and you would expect to see that later in the stint with the downforce that he has.
You would think, but we see Scott Dixon hit pit lane a little earlier than I'm sure he wanted, but he must be hanging on to that Energizer car. Marty?
45 laps.
Yes, and I think everybody's hanging on to their car right now. Scott Dixon included in that group. Marco Andretti also on pit road. Dixon's going to get 4 tires, a very slight front wing adjustment. Took a while to get the car up on the air jack. As we said, Marco Andretti on pit road. They go half a turn down on the front wing, so a little too tight for Scott Dixon out on the racetrack. These Penske cars trying to stretch it another 3 to 4 laps. Will Power coming down pit road right now, though. Here's Power on pit road. He said that he had a moment, quote, was on the radio, and that's why Tony CANAL was able to get around him. Only air pressure adjustments for Will Power, and they have a problem waiting for a while before he leaves pit road. Power told me what he needed to do was stay in the top 5 through these first stints. So far, he's done that. You see his teammate, Juan Pablo Montoya, coming down pit road. Montoya struggling with the car just a little bit more than Power was. He said it had a little bit of understeer. They're going to put a half turn of front wing in. The Penske guys go to work. Air pressure adjustment on all 4 tires as well. There's that turn of wing and the battle for the lead on the right-hand side, Brian.
Look at that. It's Scott Dixon who goes past. That was not for the lead as Simon Pagenaud drops down to make his pit stop now. Interesting to see some of these drivers able to go into the 40s. 45 laps for Bourdais, Montoya, and other drivers well into the 30s. So just gives you an idea of how quickly some of the tires are going away.
CANAL was so much faster than Pagenaud on the warm-up lane. He caught him by about 40 car lengths down to 1. And if he has a good stop here, he might get the lead on here on this pit stop.
And Tony CANAL was flying there even at the end of that stint. They were telling him on the radio, you've got a faster car even than the leader, go after him. He's not asking for any changes. Tony CANAL is out.
Unbelievable stop for Simon Pagenaud and his team. You see him exiting there on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. He wanted no changes to his car. You see Helio Castroneves also hitting pit road. His car a little bit too much understeer as well. They made a very small wing adjustment and air pressure adjustment for Helio Castroneves. Charlie Kimball on pit road leaving right now.
47 laps for Kimball, Castroneves, CANAL, and Pagenaud on that first run. And CANAL, with that additional downforce, really seems to have the car in the later going. You said it would happen. Your graph said that.
But it's not just downforce on the apron. It is experience as well. Tony CANAL, the most seasoned guy on the ovals, along with Castroneves. That's what it takes to have the knowledge to know you can push it that much here at Texas.
Talk about experience. One of the least experienced drivers you see.
Joseph Newgarden chasing the car up the track, just hung on to it.
He gets in there right behind Sage Karam, and you get into that dirty air. I was talking about experience or the lack thereof. Sage Karam in the number 8 does not have much experience at all in the IndyCar Series. You see Newgarden in the black and gold 67, the middle car behind the blue and white of Sage Karam, and he gets there to the turn, and the car just goes away.
It went a little loose. It wiggled in the rear on entry, and then he chased it up the hill, and Marco just slid down below the inside of him.
Joseph Newgarden driving for Ed Carpenter Racing. They cannot afford to crash another car on an oval. They had 3 big wrecks at Indy, 2 big ones at Detroit, and Joseph Newgarden, fast hands to save the day.
That's some close quarter racing right there. 3 wide down the back straightaway.
Charlie Kimball down on the inside in the blue and turquoise 83. Kimball having a very, very solid year, and he's been solid here this weekend.
You know, Charlie is so polite outside of the car, but the guy is like an animal inside the car. At the end of the Indy 500, he put a move on his teammate. It's the top guy for the Ganassi team at the Indy 500 and was really solid. So look at him making moves.
Sage Karam in the 8 just in front. We talk about his lack of experience, actually put on probation after Detroit by the IndyCar officials because of contact.
And he cannot afford to crash any more cars or get in any trouble. So he's really on thin ice right now. The guy's got all the talent in the world, but he's treading on thin ice.
But I think the team has done a smart thing. Obviously, Dario Franchitti there with the program, helping him out. They've put downforce in that car so it's stable for him throughout a stint. He just needs to go out and focus on doing a good job around the high side right now. He was very good in the Indy Lights cars on oval, so this should be one of his strengths.
And what a difference a year makes. That was Charlie Kimball just rocketing past Ed Carpenter, who was the car to beat last year, took the win and was so good in traffic. And we're watching Marco Andretti now work Sage Karam on the low line, and this could be a good night for Marco. He's fallen back a little bit, currently in 12th, but as temperatures come down, watch for that yellow Snapple car to be very quick at the finish.
Heard the radio at the start. He had a big understeer, a little bit too much rear downforce. They put a bunch of front wing in the car, and now he's starting to come back forward again, but he's got to clear this guy Sage Karam and get off that low line and open up the track a little bit.
Well, now he's going to get the dirty air from Ed Carpenter just in front, and what is Carpenter going to do? That's really going to dictate what happens behind him. Carpenter with kind of a midline into the corner.
And that midline is going to be okay for Marco as long as Ed doesn't come all the way down to the white line. And I think he got a little bit of that dirty air because Marco had to lift big as Sage Karam now powers to the high side.
And it is heating up and it is flying by. The guy's turning tremendous speed, laps ticking away very quickly from here at Texas Motor Speedway. Simon Pagenaud looking for the victory. Man, it is crowded right now. You see Simon Pagenaud in the red and white 22, still your leader, trying to work through traffic, and it is tight.
This is the really, really tough part for Simon. He's got a great car, but he's a light downforce car, and he's got to really watch it in the traffic here because like Dixon in the past, you can just, in the turbulence, you can just lose it, Townsend.
And Simon Pagenaud knows if I can just hang on while it's hot, it cools down later, I'm only going to get faster. Marty?
And guys, we talked about how well he ran in the Indianapolis 500, and he's still upset with himself. He'll admit it, for running into Scott Dixon and really costing his team a shot at the win in the Indianapolis 500. I asked him how he thought about that race. He said, you know, actually, I was proud of the way we performed, but I'm mad at myself. It motivated me for Texas. He said, I could not wait to get back here. This is a guy who had not run ovals in his life until a couple of years ago. Could not wait to get to Texas because I knew he would have a shot to win the race, clearly showing it right now.
Marty, I can vividly remember walking this track and explaining how to oval race to Simon Pagenaud. It didn't take him long. He's the guy to beat so far tonight. It's a very impressive drive
behind him. So Montoya, we've talked about a more mature Montoya. So
I think Montoya is just sitting here, just playing the game. He's done this a bunch of times before. You know, he's waiting until we get down to the end. He's been playing the book exactly the way it needs to be played.
Charlie Kimball worked his way into the top 10, but it didn't come easy. Watch this, going low, and whoa! I don't think Graham Rahal had any idea as Carpenter's already on pit lane again.
Jack Hawksworth has been back into pit as well, and you see Carpenter for another stop. Graham now in. He was complaining how loose the car was.
Here's off to the rear. I know, but the biggest thing we can work on right now is tire pressures, and they were over, so this should help. Here we are, 3, 2, 1. Nice.
And guys pitting very early here for Graham Rahal, who's on this early schedule. He pitted on lap 33 before, so only lasted 33 more laps this time as well. He said, I know we're going to take that wing out that we put in last time, but we have got to fix the rear of this race car, as Tony Kanaan has now passed Simon Pagenaud.
And we talked about the extra downforce on Kanaan. Maybe in traffic it's paying off.
Well, it looked like they took a half a turn of front wing out of Graham's car and lowered the rear pressures. They said they overshot on the rear.
Careful, this thing stays green. These guys are going to have to make 2 extra pit stops. This is how Tony Kanaan came up on your leader. Pagenaud had to check up coming on a 4, and Kanaan, like a freight train, just blows by on the high side.
Motors by. We talked in qualifying yesterday that a loose car is a fast car, but only for a lap or two. You don't want to hold on to a loose car around this racetrack for a stint.
It's like Townsend and I had an argument in our pre-race meeting. He said, oh man, I take all the downforce off and go for it. I said, no way, man. I think you got to have a consistent, smooth car that you can race. And look at Kanaan. He's racing now. He's in the traffic, and he just blew by Pagenaud.
But it's still hot. The sun is just going down, Mr. Conservative.
Come on.
You wait till the gunslingers get into cold temperatures.
Ride on board with Tony Kanaan. Look at the Firestone telemetry.
Still got that throttle buried, and that's what you want to do. You want to keep that thing buried in traffic, clean air. He's got some clean running now, and checks the throttle just a little bit in the middle of the corner.
41 up there. He's been struggling. Keep an eye on him.
Now, we talk about all the traffic and everything, and the voice you just heard was from a crew member, or more likely...
A little loose on the exit, bud.
A little loose on the exit, Kanaan says. Talking about spotters, they are absolutely critical around here, are they not?
They are. I'm laughing. Kanaan couldn't even finish his thought. He was going for a bar adjustment as we see Newgarden on pit lane.
An impressive save a moment ago for Joseph Newgarden in the car, just way too loose on that last run for Newgarden. So they took that wing adjustment out that he did earlier, and also air pressure adjustment for Newgarden.
And this is one of the toughest pit lanes to get on and off. There's big bumps on the coming out of the pits here. You got to blend out at the brake here at the dotted lines as he comes back up on track. Straight up into the high line, which some of the drivers don't like, but obviously he knew it was clear behind him.
You know, we talked about Montoya biding his time, and you don't see a lot of similarities between a NASCAR stock car and an Indy car, but I think it's the mindset maybe that Montoya learned in running these long distance races. It's not over if my car's not working well in the beginning. I've got time.
And you look at how patient and how hard he worked with his team at Indianapolis to make the changes and get the car right for the finish. And it's that kind of experience that led to his second Indy 500 win, and certainly a sensational drive. Back on board here with Ryan Briscoe. We talked about him moving through the field. He's hanging on to the lead lap. The leader is just behind him, Kanaan, and he's doing everything he can to stay up there.
And I am totally amazed that there hasn't been a yellow, and this might be a yellow with these guys wheel to wheel here. But, you know, we've gone 75 laps now, no yellows. You know, at some point there's going to be yellow, and that's when guys are really going to make some changes to their cars.
And it could be a situation like that when you've got Charlie Kimball trying to pin down Tristan Vautier, and Vautier is going to do everything he can to hang on to it. And at some point you run out of road, you got to work up the track.
Now Briscoe's turn to go around the high side of Vautier. Vautier with a great finish, a 4th place finish at Detroit, but Detroit is a far, far cry from Texas Motor Speedway. 24-degree banking.
Clear.
It was a really impressive start to this race for Tristan Vautier, who didn't race here last year and has only 1 full season of experience. He picked up 5 spots early, but then started dropping back. He went the longest on the first stint to lap 55, but he said he almost crashed coming into the pits, and now he's lost the weight jacker. So Vautier sounds like he's just trying to hang on now.
So adjustments kind of going out the window for Tristan Vautier. He's got a car that he needs to hold on to. It's Kanaan who's holding on to the lead right now. Can he find his first victory of the 2015 season? Tony Kanaan, 6.5 seconds out in front now from Texas Motor Speedway, the Firestone 600. He is a man on a move. He's improved 7 positions from the start. You see Helio Castroneves in the blue and white number 3, trying to work his way to the front, being shown in 3rd right now as he slips past Juan Pablo Montoya.
He went from 4th to 2nd, and basically the front straightaway. Montoya is really loose now. He's been complaining as we see Graham now making a move on Pagenaud on the outside. And these 2 Penske cars are starting, the handling's going away, and look at Castroneves. He's just gone in 1 lap. He's gone.
Graham Rahal, Honda power, Chevy power for Simon Pagenaud, and yellow on the speedway. Tony Kanaan The rest of the field will begin to get gathered up, easy for me to say.
Giving a sigh of relief.
Let's take a break for everybody and have a bit of a breath.
Well, this is good news for the guys that are kind of out of sequence. It's going to get them back on sequence because everybody will pit now and put everybody back to square one with the same tires and fuel level.
Absolutely amazing. 83 laps under green. Take a look at Firestone. They'll give us our look at our fastest laps in tonight's race so far. He had the fastest lap, but just a couple of laps ago, take a look at Will Power on the left. When was the last time you saw Will Power get passed like that, high and low?
By two cars that were struggling. So that shows how much he's struggling right now. So he's obviously very, very happy to see this yellow come in and make some changes to the car.
Well, that's 44 laps on his tires, okay? And Carpenter and Sato on much fresher rubber. So, again, it's all about tire wear and managing that. Going to be a race on pit lane under this yellow for sure.
This is going to be a busy pit lane. We've got a couple cars laps down, so we'll see what happens, how many guys come in that are on the lead lap. Everybody's laid out.
I was going to say, who isn't laid out?
There's always a potential on this pit lane to have an accident on pit road or hit somebody's wing, run over a hose, anything. So,
and this is one of those deals where the pits are going to be so busy. We saw crew members hit at Indianapolis. These guys on pit road, they earn their money, and they are in the line of fire just like the drivers are in the cockpit.
Well, people forget these cars are set up here at Texas to do one thing, turn left on banking. They do not handle well on a flat pit lane.
Kelly?
As Tony Kanaan makes his way down pit road, he last won this race back in 2004, and before the race he told me, I've got a decent race car, but not a race-winning car. Well, he might prove otherwise. You heard him say he's a little bit loose on exit, so they might make a little adjustment for him there. Otherwise, he's going to get those 4 fresh tires and some Sunoco fuel, and it looks, so far, they've got a clean stop, Marty.
Hello, Castroneves, middle of your screen. He's going to get that Sunoco fuel as well. He said that downforce felt very good at the end of the run. The race off pit road, I believe Juan Montoya will win that race off of pit road. Montoya said, what did you guys do to my car? It snapped loose there on that run. He had to save it at one point. They went back halfway on the wing adjustment they made last time, Brian.
Well, it looked like Castroneves and Montoya both leapfrogged, and a problem for Simon Pagenaud.
Well, I don't think it was a problem for him. I think they made a lot of changes to the car because he had a whole lap to make some changes. So I don't think he really was in a hurry. I think he was making some changes.
Take an opportunity to get it done there when they're under caution instead of a green flag stop. And that might be great strategy for Simon Pagenaud and his Penske crew. Take a look at him coming across the line at pit out. We'll be back to more from Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth. Back at Texas Motor Speedway, under caution, the sunset just...
Is that normal? I mean, should we be running for cover?
I don't know. I'm kind of wondering the same thing.
The sun is setting on fire, and this track is on fire tonight. Great crowd tonight. And now, do the yellows breed yellows? Are we going to see a lot of, like the start, a lot of everybody side-by-side pack racing again?
Well, this is, Ken, and even going back to Indianapolis, 5 ovals, including this one to finish the season. I asked him if he's excited to get the season going. He said, not so much. I'd feel a lot better if we understood this new car, Marty.
And Kevin, we saw Simon Pagenaud have trouble coming down pit road last time. Here's exactly what happened. He's been having problems, see him lower right of your screen, with the weight jacker on the car. So as he came down pit road, he actually tried to cycle it on pit road himself. He lost 5 spots on pit road, fell to 8th. You see everybody going past him on pit road there as well. And then right here, they also lost power in the car. You see him coming back out. They're trying to start the car. That's where Simon Pagenaud lost all of his time. At that point, Kyle Morris said, just take our time, make sure everything is done correctly. But they think they have the front weight jacker issue fixed for Simon Pagenaud.
Well, that's the good news, and what they need to do is take a play or a page out of the playbook of Juan Pablo Montoya. Be cool, be calm.
Yeah, but good it happened now, not at the end of the race on the last pit stop. If that happens on the last stop or under green, that it will effectively take him out of winning the race.
Drivers getting a chance to take a breath. It was just a torrid pace that was being set, and now it's going to be a brand new complexion when we go back. New tires, and as you said, it'll be interesting to see the changes that have been made. If they work or if they don't work, who's going to be better in traffic this time, who's going to be better in clean air. You see Juan Pablo Montoya drive on board with him, Chevy Power. He is our Chevrolet driver profile for the evening. A little bit earlier, you saw American Pharoah win the Triple Crown. Well, we kind of consider Juan Pablo Montoya a Triple Crown winner. Winner at Indy, Grand Prix of Monaco, the 24 Hours of Daytona. Pretty stellar resume for JPM.
Not many better than JPM. He's a winner in everything he's done. So we see him cycling here behind the pace car. We should be going green pretty soon here.
And it's interesting, when you talk about young drivers like a Sage Karam, you and I were talking about this yesterday, Paul, and you said, hey, you know, I've certainly had my wild times, and so did Juan Pablo Montoya. A lot of the really good drivers have come in, and they've had tremendous talent. It just needs to be massaged and shaped a little bit. Perhaps Sage Karam fits into that same mold.
Well, certainly he does. I mean, everybody wants to see him succeed. You know, guys like Montoya came in and right away were running at the front, winning races right out of the box. As we get one to go, coming at the line, we'll be going green next time by. But, you know, Sage has gotten in some trouble here, and he needs to have a good run tonight.
He does, but let's not forget, guys, there is not nearly the testing opportunity that there existed back in the day. I mean, back then, Montoya would have had 20 test days before the season start. Practice everything from pit stops to out laps, in laps, strategy, fuel savings. Now you've got to learn it on the job in real time as we're on board with Scott Dixon. Marty?
And just so you guys know, quietly, Scott Dixon, like he always does, coming up to the field. Currently fourth for Scott Dixon as we're one lap from taking the green. The car too tight on the first run, too free on this last run, so they went back on the adjustment they made earlier. And Mike Hull just told him on the radio a moment ago, just want to let you know that your front bar is full stiff. Just make sure that you know that. And also Helio Castroneves having a fun run. He's in the second position right in front of Scott Dixon. Here's what he said on the radio moments ago.
If Juan Pablo helped me with the draft, because I think Tony's going to go on the outside, I'll just stay behind him, and we can pull away.
I think what Castroneves is saying is if Juan Pablo can leave me a little clean air down low, we can draft and pull away. About to go green here.
Definitely some team tactics here. You know Kanan's going to want to go, so this is going to be interesting. Ganassi against Penske.
Chevy Power in the first 6 cars to come across the line. Montoya leads. Castroneves is going to try to drop in behind him, and you saw the 4th car in the order, Scott Dixon, trying to work his way past, and then after that, it is side by side. Even 3 wide at the back.
You've got the guys going for race wins, and then you got the guys looking for making up everything as we go 3 wide. Look at Dixon working the high side.
What happened to let's hook up and run away?
Wow.
Still up there.
Look at Munoz on the outside.
Munoz.
Wow. Munoz right behind Dixon.
Honda power for Carlos Munoz, and he has jumped up to 5th.
He's got to be careful. Put a big chop on Will Power, as you said, PT. Got to be careful moving around mid-corner like that.
He went from the high line up high and then chopped right down to the white line. I'm sure that really put Power back a ways. That's something that a driver doesn't like, when a guy moves his line around in the middle of the corner.
Understays for passing the pace car at the line. That would be Sato, Bourdais, and Joseph Newgarden. Looking down now with Tony Kanaan hooked up right there behind Helio Castroneves in the 3.
And so Castroneves and Montoya are nice rhythm here. Montoya's going to go low, and Kanaan's going to try to take advantage of it.
I'll tell you what, when you're looking for downforce, you're looking to get a wing out in the air as the penalties, as Bourdais and Newgarden come down the pit row. When you're looking for air with these cars, you want to dip a wing out in front of the car in front of you. There's no air there for Kanaan. He's just basically got 2 cars right in front of him.
Kanaan's trying to work forward, but then he's got his teammate, Scott Dixon, working the clean air on the outside, and Kanaan almost gets him into the fence.
Just slides up just a little bit, and that was a close moment, but no lift at all for Scott Dixon. Dixon with a really good first half of the season. He struggled the last couple of years in the first half and still been a championship contender because he runs so strong in the second half of the season, and that is good news for Scott Dixon.
As strong as Tony Kanaan has looked tonight, he told me last night in practice he spent a lot of time working around 2 or 3 other cars as you see him make a move on the inside there.
Keep digging.
As he gets around
clear, baby.
Juan
Nice
Pablo
job.
Montoya, but he told me this is the hardest he has ever had to work in a car in all of his years of coming here to Texas. 15 starts for Tony Kanaan, Marty.
Well, Kelly, the Penske drivers had a plan, but the Ganassi guys fooled it. Montoya said over the radio to his spotter, I'm going to let Elio go. I'm going to fall in behind him. We'll save tires. But what he didn't expect was Tony Kanaan to come to the inside, and both of the Ganassi cars went by the Penske cars. That plan was foiled and didn't work out too well, did it,
I
Brian?
have no idea why
know.
Montoya's dropping so
Yeah.
much. He was in clean air and just
rocketed right around the inside of him.
But Montoya was in the lead in clean air and just shot way up the track.
That's that light downforce. Now that he's in traffic, now he's struggling.
Now take a look. Scott Dixon just in front. Then you see the two Penske cars. They slide high. And Kanaan says, thank you very much. I've got some downforce. I'll go low.
That was weird.
Way to go.
We're not
Mr.
even at
Lamont.
half distance. Just wait. Just wait.
Now, I'm waiting. And right now, PT's got the lead.
I'm never wrong. I'm never wrong, my man.
Oh, wow. All right, so it's getting deep here in the booth, but it's getting deep competition-wise on the track because Scott Dixon all over the rear wing of Kanaan.
This is good stuff right here. These two guys, teammates, they're not going to do anything to jeopardize each other like
you and I would.
And Power or me and you would for sure. But I think these two right now are going to sit here and run and try to stretch out on their competition.
And it was interesting, last night, Scott Dixon ran in the practice session with one of the...
And Briscoe now up to 5th. He has the highest level of downforce in the car.
Briscoe continuing to move forward and still impressed with Carlos Munoz running forth, the highest placed Honda-powered car, the Honda of Briscoe right behind him. And for Ryan Briscoe to be out of an Indy car for as long as he has been driving sports cars and testing for Corvette, getting ready for the 24 Hours of Le Mans, to step back in a place like Texas and perform the way he is impressive indeed.
Well, and Sam Schmidt and that Schmidt-Peterson team looked at the stats and said, hey, this guy's got a win, he's got a second, he's got 3 thirds, and Ryan Briscoe is showing why he is so good here at Texas Motor Speedway.
Nice.
Around the high side.
Nice clean pass. So comes.
We talk about the success for Ryan Briscoe here at Texas, is that he's just always had really good race cars here. And in spite of qualifying 19th, he knew he had more for the race tonight. He said he just made a mistake. He went for a high line, then a low line in qualifying that just didn't work out. But he said, hey, this Schmidt-Peterson team is so good. They are incredibly organized, and I am just so lucky to be a part of it.
Well, you can't going to run at the front.
And I think Dixon is just really content to sit here. He's probably checking the throttle, saving a little bit of fuel, and let Tony lead here, burn a little extra fuel. And look at Castroneves. He fought back. He's right there with them as well. So
going away, James Jakes beginning to close down on them. And you got to hand it to Jakes, another one of those guys who didn't race at all last year and then comes back to start the season. He's got to get his feet back underneath him, and he's done a great job here. In fact, he was wickedly fast on his first lap of qualifying, so fast that he hit the rev limiter into turn 1 to start the second lap, and that's what dropped him back in qualifying.
He was the only Honda to pull off those pods as fast as he did on that first lap.
He's closing down on Montoya. He's got probably close to the same setup as Briscoe, his teammate. So as we see Hunter Ray come in, just struggling, coming in for more changes.
Well, then you've got to be careful about just adding wing and adding wing and adding wing. You think, well, that adds downforce, but then it gets unbalanced out there, and you've got a car that you don't know what it's going to do. It does something at the entry and something different at the exit.
Being 3 laps down now, he's got 4 laps down now, no chance of winning. You almost might as well turn this into some kind of a test session, make some changes, because you're not going to win from there.
Kanaan around the high side of Graham Rahal. Still leading, then Dixon, then Castroneves, the top 3, just as it's been.
Looking inside clear.
And for the kind of run Graham Rahal has had so far in 2015, that has to be so frustrating. 2 laps down now, watching those leaders just blow by him.
Sage Karam closing
big wiggle.
in the back of Marco.
That was a big wiggle.
Now, Paul, this young driver's been told, just finish the race, no more mistakes. How do you do that when you've got a car dancing around underneath you?
He was right on the back of Andretti. He had a wiggle, and then now he's fell off the back. So instantly when that car takes a slide, as we look at the graphic, all the penalties that Karam has had this year, that's I think he beats me in the penalty department.
I was going to say, this is some kind of mistake. This reads like my rookie year.
This looks like your report card.
And Sage Karam's really hanging on as Graham Rahal goes for pit road.
Graham headed down pit lane, and sometimes when your car's not handling, this is the most comfortable place that you can be.
Boy, that 60-mile-an-hour crawl down pit road feels very slow when the other guys are going by at 2:15 on the racetrack. Graham said, "Get me in, boys." Joseph Newgarden pitting right behind him. There you see the wing turn. He said it had incredible understeer in and through the middle, but then snapped loose off the corner. So a very tough handling race car for Graham Rahal. You see Juan Pablo Montoya coming to pit road. He said, "My fault on the thing with earlier with Helio Castroneves. Montoya's car a little bit too loose." He comes in 11th. He fell back from the lead all the way to 11th. You see his teammate Will Power laid out right behind him. Juan Pablo hits the pit stall with some Sunoco fuel, 4 tires for Juan Pablo, and what was a loose race car for much of that run. Air pressure adjustments for him. They try to make the wing change. Starts to go. You see that wing adjustment for Juan Pablo Montoya. Will Power right behind him.
Make sure we get the wing, guys.
He's going to get the wing adjustment as well. Car not handling like he would like. Just no rear grip for Will Power.
And that's a killer for Montoya on a green flag stop to have a 2-second, 3-second delay right now. He's going to have the fire in his eyes on this outlap.
And you saw a similar situation at Detroit where he tried to leave before they had the wing completely adjusted.
So we see Pagenaud coming to the pit lane. He's been falling back and struggling.
What kind of aero setup does he have, Paul?
Low downforce is not king tonight.
Give it time. Let it breathe, gentlemen. Let it breathe.
Tony Kanaan on the right.
And you heard it there on the radio. He said a little less front wing for Tony Kanaan, the silver car on the right. So they're going to take half a turn of front wing on Tony Kanaan's start. As you see Pagenaud now pulling out of his pit box. And they continue the work there, the fresh tires on the race leader, Tony Kanaan.
A pretty good stop for Kanaan as he heads back out.
Very nice stop, just like clockwork, as we see Bourdais, last week's winner in Detroit, coming in the pit lane. He thought he had a good car. He's been struggling tonight running a higher downforce setup, but he's got no winglets on the back bumper either.
But Bourdais struggles at this racetrack. He's never really had good run here. No good finishes, both of them 20th position.
Ryan Briscoe said he was a little bit free on exit, but they're not going to make any changes for him. He's been a big mover inside the top 5, and you see Kimball coming out behind him. Carlos Munoz, who also won a week ago, also came in for his service. Marty?
It's been a very solid night for Scott. Dixon comes in running in the 2nd position. Car very good for Dixon for much of that run. As we talked about, kind of waited behind his teammate Tony Kanaan, saved as much as he could. That paying off for him. No changes on Scott Dixon's car this time.
Carlos Munoz in for his stop, and quick work by the Andretti squad.
And let's see where Scott Dixon comes out. That'll be the battle for the lead up front with Kanaan. And as these guys cycle through, here comes Castroneves on pit lane.
There's Kanaan getting past Sage Karam. We'll have to wait till he gets back to the line and see how it all falls out. Bourdais just in front. Castroneves off the marks in the pits. Now it's Marco Andretti's turn.
All clear, all clear.
It's as busy on pit road as it is out on the racetrack, and you talked about it, even a pause for a second or two. When you think about the speeds that they're averaging around this racetrack, that ends up being hundreds of feet worth of difference.
Yeah, James Jake's currently shown as your leader, but he's going to have to pit soon. And it looks like Dixon has beat Kanaan and Castroneves out as James Jakes hits pit road.
Jake's coming in. Good run, crew reminding him pit lane speed. Kevin?
It's been a very good run for James Jakes. The idea was to stay on the lead lap. He's done that. He's been running in the top 7, cycled up to the front as we see the leaders go by the main straightaway right now. And it's a front wing adjustment for Jakes, and he's headed back out.
Good move by Kanaan, but he can't make it stick. It's stuck on the high side.
We'll see how long these two guys, being teammates like he was with Castroneves earlier in the race, will he run side by side with his teammate or just try to get by or fall back in line like he's doing just now?
Now Scott Dixon to the point. Kanaan wants it back, and as you said, how patient will he be? 145 laps of 248 down. Two very different lines. Dixon stays low. Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, running different lines, but running up front. You see Scott Dixon. Can he win again at Texas? Race fans love horsepower, and even here at Texas Motor Speedway, the fans glued to the screens watching the Belmont Stakes. American Pharoah, the first time in 37 years that the Triple Crown has been won. American Pharoah did it today. Watching it on the big screens here at Texas Motor Speedway. Big Haas, they don't get any bigger than that. Right now, the fight for the lead is big, and big
side trying to make that happen. He's got a little draft in front of him. It looks like as they're coming up on power now to lap him.
Second out of each lap right now. And I think, Kevin, you've got Carpenter.
Yeah, he had pitted just a moment ago and climbed out of the car. I know it was a handful all night. Ultimately, what put you out?
We lost an engine. So, fitting into the second race of our season, just, I don't know, we got to go home and get this figured out. I haven't had cars this bad in a long time, and I'm part of the problem because I'm not helping get a solution. So, really disappointing, feel terrible for Fuzzies and the Hartmans and everyone that helps us do this, because we're underachieving big time.
Frustrating night for Ed Carpenter. They just don't have a handle on this new underwing and the aero kit right now. They felt lost all night.
Well, these two guys aren't lost. You see Charlie Kimball in the 83. You ride on board with Ryan Briscoe. The battle for sixth.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mr. Nice Guy out of the car, but the guy is a cutthroat, stone-cold animal inside the car. And these guys are side by side, wheel to wheel at 210 miles an hour.
And Honda versus Chevy. Briscoe in Honda power. Charlie Kimball with a Chevrolet. You said it, Townsend. The Hondas can run well. The setup just has to be perfect, it seems.
Well, I think it just goes to experience. I mean, here you've got a guy that is very, very strong at Texas Motor Speedway. He's got the knowledge to know, hey, I can make the high line work. It's bumpy, as you see. I'll tell you the difference is that Honda rear flap on the top of the wheel pod. That winglet bounces all over like crazy, much like we see on the road courses with the Honda front wing.
And we know that Briscoe is running the most downforce of anybody in the field. So the Honda's showing that it's carrying more downforce. It has power.
Yep.
It's got plenty of power. They've just got to get the balance sorted out from the aero to the mechanical side of the car, which is what they haven't figured out yet.
Briscoe keeping Kimball pinned down to the bottom. As you guys said that earlier, that's going to eventually wear on Charlie Kimball's tires because he's got to keep that car pinned down to the bottom. But how long can they run this way?
Pinned down, you might end up.
Scott Dixon's been pretty good this weekend, so we'll see what happens. You know,
traffic, that higher downforce setup, definitely the way to go. But if this guy can hang on here, especially if there's a late yellow and they all go to fresh tires, he's going to be fast. Now look at what happened earlier. This is Castroneves on Bourdais. Bourdais just getting the left sides down into the grass on the tri-oval, and that can get away from you.
Bourdais did that last night in practice here. We saw the same thing. Kimball now back in front of Briscoe.
Returning the favor. I wonder if lap traffic factored back into the equation.
What, that guy doesn't give up, man. He just keeps going after it.
In the middle, so they get the free on exit.
Briscoe saying he's pushing in the middle, but then he gets to the X of the corner, and all of a sudden things loosen up.
You want a car that's consistent. Give me something that understeers all the time or oversteers all the time. I don't want that mixed bag. This is how Charlie Kimball up top in the 83 gets around the gold and black number 5 of Ryan Briscoe, just around the high side. Obviously got to run.
You can have a situation where that car coming around you, almost like a stock car, can pull the air around on you and loosen you up coming off the corner.
But don't forget, Briscoe ran the high line for so many laps. Now he's running low. He puts that extra demand on the tires as we watch his hands. And there's that little correction mid to exit. Just enough to let Kimball get by. Kelly?
Yeah, and as Kimball got back around Ryan Briscoe, the team came over the radio and said, we need this race to go green all the way. He's obviously very happy with his car. Before the race, he said a success tonight would just be getting the car back in one piece. Well, he looks to do a lot better than that, running well inside the top 10, which would be his best finish here at Texas.
And we see Kimball, he drives with that steering offset to the right-hand side, whereas the steering, it looks like he's loose all the time because he never gets his hands turned over in the corner.
I don't know how he does that because it's not the way I would prefer it, but it works for Charlie Kimball, and it sure is working well tonight. Graham Rahal on pit road again.
You never know if you're loose.
Yeah.
Graham Rahal comes to the pit lane. Charlie Kimball having a good run out on the racetrack. Graham a couple of laps down. Plenty more to come from Texas Motor Speedway. 171 laps of 248 in the books. Back at Texas Motor Speedway, you see Simon Pagenaud slide back as Action continues in the Firestone 600. It's the Verizon IndyCar Series. Your leader, Scott Dixon, right there in the number 9 from Chip Ganassi Racing. Energizer colors on the number 9 this weekend. And Dixon has been fast since the drop of the green, steady, consistent. The car seems to be stable throughout the run.
I think I'm going to win this bet with Townsend.
What bet was that?
That higher downforce was the way to go, slow and consistent.
A lot left to play. If you get a yellow and Castroneves and Montoya can hang on the lead lap, they will be a force. Mark my words.
Tony Kanaan running second in another car with a fair amount of downforce on it, and it really is one of those things. It's going to be anybody's guess in the ladder going. We see that at Texas Motor Speedway all the time. Kanaan choosing to run that little bit of higher downforce, trying to look for consistency. Castroneves, a little different approach, a higher downforce setting on the right.
Is this medium downforce that Castroneves here? You see that winglet on the outside rear. He's the only guy in the field that's running that combination. As we see this winglet right here on the outside. He's the
here we go. Let's move back from Castroneves to Juan Pablo Montoya, but he is well back of Castroneves, 16 seconds behind the leader, so that's another 9 seconds behind Castroneves as Montoya had problems early on, struggled with the balance. It seemed to be good in the beginning, but it just really hasn't seemed to find the balance back. Marty?
Well, guys, don't forget, he was 11th a little while ago, so maybe Townsend still is in this ball game because Montoya, with a no downforce, has been pretty quick on this run. He did say the exit right there, we just got off turn 2, terrible on the end of this run, so it's getting way too tight for Montoya. Just can't get the car to turn down, so you'll see him run sort of that middle lane sometimes, but Montoya struggling a little bit right there.
And such a thrill for anybody who gets to ride in that two-seater, especially when you've got Mario Andretti in front of you. The leader now coming to pits, has to get down to the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Down here, we have an open pit.
Hear the crew talking to him. Kanaan stays out, Marty.
Tony Kanaan, or actually Scott Dixon coming down pit road. Tony Kanaan, his teammate, as you mentioned, on the right-hand side of your screen, staying out. I don't think I've heard Scott Dixon say less on the radio than I have tonight. The car just a little bit too tight at the end of that run. His teammate Tony Kanaan now coming to pit road. They're going to make a very slight wing adjustment for Scott Dixon. That's it. He's been very happy with this 9 car all evening long.
Looked like about a half a turn of wing. It looked like they may have taken some wing out of the front as Kanaan now comes to the pits.
And Tony's saying that he was getting a little bit loose towards the end of the stint. They're going to try to help him out with an air pressure adjustment for Tony Kanaan, so we probably won't see them touch the wing. Ahead of him, Ryan Briscoe is running in the top 10, also came in for his pit stop, and Tony Kanaan is off.
They pulled something out of the air box, Townsend, as he left the pits. They yanked something out of there, as we see Montoya.
Slides to a stop, PT, in his stall. They have trouble getting the left front tire on for Montoya. They're going to make the quarter turn of wing, as you heard. Car too tight, as we mentioned, on exit for Montoya. That's the wing adjustment he requested. At the end of the day, quick stop for the Verizon guys.
Good outlap here.
You mentioned pulling debris out of Dixon's air box.
It wasn't debris. It was a big piece of carbon they pulled out of there. So I'd like to see a replay that we were talking about on the pit stop about reducing downforce. He yanked something right here.
I think that's actually a cooling lever or a screen that is installed in the radiator to help with debris, but it looks like they pulled that out. Maybe they stacked 2 of them in case they get debris, they can remove it as Kimball now comes in.
That steering wheel is all the way to the right.
Here we are.
He doesn't even get it straight getting in the box. Kelly?
Tony Kanaan, who's having his best run ever here at Texas Motor Speedway, just saying he was getting a little bit loose on that last stint, but he's been really consistent over the long haul.
Good stop for Charlie Kimball as he comes back out. Now we find out where do these guys cycle through as Castroneves still has not hit in. With yellow, absolutely.
With yellow, yeah.
But under green, no, not at all.
There's no way.
But look at Scott Dixon. I mean, the guy is just a machine. Briscoe's a lap down, and he's in 5th place.
Briscoe would love to get back by in case they had that caution that you speak of. Obviously, he has the pace to run with the leaders. He's right there with Dixon. That would put him back on the lead lap and back in the fight.
I already kind of talked about.
It's Dixon, then Kanaan, then Castroneves, Montoya, Briscoe. That's the top 5. Will Power, we understand, may have brushed the wall, so his day may be getting even worse. Power not having a good run at all, and take a look.
Wow, coming out of 4.
Carbon copy of Graham Rahal a couple years ago, and he's lucky to get away with that, and that would be a big blow in the points if Montoya continues to run in the top 5.
Well, what you have to be concerned about is that contact with that right rear, and you still have a long way to go. That's where so much of the load is.
Well, it's not just the potential of a failure, but knocking Will Power.
So Will Power continuing to struggle here. There's a look at Tim Cindric. We'll be back to more from Texas Motor Speedway. There's nothing better to do July 4th weekend than watch NASCAR as NASCAR returns to NBC July 4th weekend, live from Daytona with the Sprint Cup Series Coke Zero 400 powered by Coca-Cola. It all begins July 4th with the Xfinity Series Subway Firecracker 250 on NBC-SN. Gabby Chavez is in. Kevin?
It's been a really good night for the rookie who comes in with a lot of confidence. He doesn't seem to be fazed by the challenge of this. He said, I simply just don't think about it. I go. He has fallen a lap down, but to be running in the top 10 all night, your first time here, is a really good night.
He was so consistent last night on 20-lap runs. He was the 3rd quickest driver over 20-lap runs. And as a rookie, he's doing exactly what he needs to do. He's turning the...
Andretti, his dad, came on the radio, said, that was your last stop, dude. You're saving fuel for the rest of this run. So they're planning on the 27 to try and make it all the way to the end of the race. Same plan for Simon Pagenaud. He's going to try and stretch the fuel. Graham Rahal coming down pit road. And I think this sums up his night. Just a moment ago on the radio, he said, this is absolutely miserable. The car way too tight going into the corners, way too much understeer in the middle of the corner, and then it snaps loose off the corner. They've tried several things to fix it, and you see the stop here for Graham Rahal is just not having a fun night on a night when he expected to be very strong here at Texas, just not working out for him.
Screen and your Dixon as we watch Coletti. Coletti just worked a chicane on pit lane. I think he got confused over who his crew was.
Sorry, I lost it. Yeah, copy. Okay. Let's pit this lap.
Let's see what happened here as we watch a replay. Coletti comes to pit lane, loses the rear end. Wow. That's a nice save there. And I think that was the crew of James. That wasn't James Jakes, or that was his guys, as we watch Will Power now come down.
So Power now to the marks.
And guys, it has clearly been a very frustrating night for Will Power this evening. The theory here, get some tires now. You see the major wing adjustment for Will Power. Try and make up some time on the racetrack, but just not the night Will Power expected.
So for Will Power right now, it's all about collecting as many points as he can, make the best of a bad situation, and that's exactly what he's trying to do as Scott Dixon continues to lead. The question is, will they have the strategy to get to the checkered flag? There are 28 laps to go from Texas.
You see Tony Kanaan making his pit stop from the 2nd position. They knew they would have to take one more. They couldn't go on fuel. He's going to get 4 fresh tires. He hasn't asked for any adjustments, and it was a quick, clean stop for the 10.
Kelly Juan Montoya coming down pit road was supposed to come the lap before, but they didn't communicate that correctly to Montoya. His car tight on this run as well. They're telling him to get the wing, quarter wing adjustment on the front. Car again too tight for Juan Montoya.
I gotta say, Montoya's had a lot of issues on pit lane. Just seems to be out of sync with his guys down there. Back on board with Tony Kanaan. Now these guys have made their last stop. And right now, you got Marco Andretti and Carlos Munoz trying to make the fuel numbers so they can go to the end.
I'll tell you what, Marco's pace is still good. His last couple laps have been 206, 205, 204. So the pace is still good as we see Dixon now coming in for his final pit stop.
Trying to carry good speed around the apron like we saw drivers do before. You can lose time there if you slow down too much. Dixon trying to get down to the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit at those cones. He's on pit road for his last stop.
He comes down pit road, and that's excruciating, isn't it, driver? 60 miles an hour while everybody else is flying by you. You hear Mike Hull on the radio telling him to hit the sign. Dixon slowly into his stall. Tony Kanaan going by him. Dixon with the 4 tires wants no adjustments. Car was very good. And they're short pitting like these other guys, kind of force their hand to take on tires here late in the race.
And you see Tony Kanaan with Elio Castroneves right alongside of him as they go down the back straightaway and into 3 and 4.
And that's impressive. Both these guys have made their last stop, but Castroneves made up huge ground on Kanaan on that sequence.
Kanaan fights back on the inside. He's got the shorter way around, but he's chopping him.
Whoa!
Chopping.
Trying to move him down, going down the back straightaway. Kanaan slips through for just a moment, but remember, Castroneves running just one of those winglets on the back, so should have just a little more straight line speed.
Castroneves with a warning at the final laps of the Indy 500 for blocking, and that was the Brazilian slide job.
Yeah, that definitely was a little bit aggressive as we see Kimball peel off for the pit lane, led for a couple laps. He's got a good shot tonight as well.
As Charlie Kimball comes in, he's having a lot of fun out there. We've seen those battles with Ryan Briscoe. At one point, Charlie came over the radio and said, I think I deserve an attaboy for that, and they gave it to him. And now they're giving him 4 fresh tires to go battle it out for these last 18 laps.
And it is going to be intense over these last few laps. Ryan Briscoe there alongside Tony Kanaan. Sage Karam, the next car in the order.
And Dixon, it looks like, on timing and scoring, came out.
It would be his second victory here at Texas. He won back in 2008. Will Power flashes by. Scott Dixon, everything has worked for him tonight. The car underneath him from the drop of the green all the way to the checkered flag. Scott Dixon wins in Texas. Just a phenomenal run by Scott Dixon, and you got to give credit to the team because the car worked to perfection.
My hand is out, Townsend. You can pay up right now. Pay up, sucker.
I got alligator arms all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden, arms very short. Kanaan with another great run. Castroneves, Montoya struggles, finishes 4th, and Marco Andretti finishes every lap so far this season. So a good season for Marco Andretti, but the win slips away. We'll be back to talk to folks.
Back in victory lane at the Texas Motor Speedway, a classic performance by this guy, Scott Dixon, your winner at Texas.
Dixon gains 20 points on Juan Pablo Montoya tonight. Dixon historically has been strong over the latter half of the season. He could be a real threat. Looking down on the racetrack, there's Charlie Kimball. Not such a bad run for him either in 7th. We'll be right back.